Hi everyone, and welcome to the Adespresso June webinar. Thank you for joining me today, wherever you are in the world. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is how to reduce your Facebook advertising costs by using split testing. Split testing is really part of the core, the DNA, if you like, of Adespresso. So we're going to be showing you some examples of split testing and how to implement that for your own business. So just before we dive into today's training, a little bit of housekeeping. We always get asked, are we recording? Yes, we are. We're going to put the recording up on our website, adespresso.com/webinars, within 24 hours, usually within a couple of hours, but definitely within a day there. You can also check out our YouTube channel, which just search for Adespresso and you'll find it. And we've got all the previous webinars there, as well as on adespresso.com/webinars. So this is going to be a very interactive session. We're going to answer questions. We're going to leave some time at the end for those. Also, my colleague Tori is going to be monitoring chat today as we go along. So any questions or comments, just go to your GoToWebinar control panel there, and you should see a little questions box. Put the questions in there. Also, if you want to check that out now, if you want to let me know where you're listening into today and whether you can hear me okay, that'd be appreciated. Can also already see one from Muqtadir saying hello, so hi to you. I'm not quite sure where he's joining us from, but anybody else, yeah, if you want to let me know where you're joining from. Gabriela from Brazil, thanks for joining, can hear me fine. Bob checking from Salt Lake City, Utah. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining me today. So just before we dive in again to today's training, a little bit about me, just so you know my background, my credibility for presenting this training. So I'm Paul, I'm the Head of Education and Training here at Adespresso. If you've got any questions after this webinar, maybe we don't get around to answering it or you're watching a replay, I guarantee I answer all my emails. Just go and email me, paul@adespresso.com, and I'll be happy to help with any questions that you got. So I'm in a very privileged position here at Adespresso in that I get to work on lots of different accounts. So I've audited campaigns from probably like over 1,000 different Facebook ad accounts there. So I see what's working all over the world, different types of businesses, different revenue levels, different objectives. I personally manage about $2 million of client ad spend a year now on the accounts that I work on. And I've got a coaching list of clients. So I coach some small, medium businesses and then some which have got multi-billion-dollar revenues. So yeah, again, I get to see that all different types of businesses and different objectives. Wow, lots of other people joining now. David, Rahul, Annette, Chris, Gordon, Sneha, Sarah, and Dishna. So thank you all for commenting there. It's really appreciated. So today's topics. First of all, we're going to be looking at why you should split test, and that's going to be pretty straightforward, so we won't spend too much time on that. And then just a definition of what split testing is so that everybody's on the same page, going to level up your knowledge. And then we're going to be going into the main part of the webinar, which is covering the Adespresso $1,000 experiment, where we put actual real budget behind the experiment and get real data. So we're not going to give you some theory that can't be backed up. We're going to give you some solid figures here. And then what I want to do then is turn that around and see how we can apply that to your own businesses. So what you should be testing, how many ads that you can run, what kind of budget, how much time you need for the experiment. These are the common questions we always get asked, and really just then how to interpret your results. So let's dive into why you should be split testing. And I just let everybody know that, you know, sometimes it's going to sound really spammy. Like you sometimes see these blog posts or those quite fraudulent Facebook ads that say going to double your results with one simple trick. But like I said, I'm actually going to back this up as we go along. I'm going to show you some data and show you that split testing is going to make a big difference to your both your advertising success on Facebook and Instagram, but also your business overall there. So some examples of what you can achieve with split testing and some benefits there. You know, sometimes a single experiment can save you over 50% on your ad costs or double your results, depending which way you look at it. If you do multiple rounds of testing where you then take forward the winners, ditch the losers, and then go and iterate on those winners and come up with some new creative based on that, that iterative testing can sometimes cut your cost by 3/4. Split testing is very simple to set up. It can take a couple of minutes sometimes. We're going to go through how to set those up within Adespresso. And if you're an agency, maybe you haven't got a business yourself, so you don't care quite so much about ad costs. But if you're an agency working on behalf of a client, this is where you can add real value. You can really show your worth as an agency there. Facebook's now doing a lot of the automation for us. It's creating very high quality lookalike audiences, value-based lookalike audiences, and so on. So as an agency, we can't just rely on those traditional areas where we added value. Instead, we need to be doing split testing, showing those results in reports to clients, and then they're going to retain you there. Just a little disclaimer as we go along. These savings and the figures that I give you are generally examples only and can't be applied to every business. So, there's no 100% guarantee here. But like I said, I'm going to back it up with figures from Adespresso's real advertising account there. So what is split testing? It's going to be quite simple, but like I said at the beginning, I like to get everybody on the same page before we go into the details. So one way to look at split testing is you could go into the experiment section of Business Manager and you'll see what's there. So you'll see on the experiments page, 3 types of experiment: an A/B test, which is your split testing, but also just for completeness, there's a holdout test and also a brand survey that you get the options from. So let's dig into, first of all, what an A/B test is. So an A/B test, also called split testing, generally, and unless you get very specific types of advertising, you can use the terms interchangeably. It's just a marketing strategy where 2 elements of a marketing campaign are tested against each other to analyze which one will deliver the best results. Very, very simple. You've got option A, option B there. Here's a couple of ads from Adespresso that we run in the past for classic A/B test. We've got exactly the same, apart from one graphic's got hearts, one's got stars. Which one's going to perform the best? Which one's going to cut down our cost there? So what we can do is we pick our audience. You then show part of the audience version A, part of the audience version B, and then you analyze the results. That's how simple split testing is. Very, very simple. Of course, we're going to go into some more details later, but that's the fundamental what we're doing. Do people prefer A or do they prefer B? I thought I'd just touch on very briefly because it causes confusion sometimes. The other types of tests that you get within the experiment section of Business Manager. So a holdout test there, that's looking for conversion lift. What that means is you show audience A an ad and audience B, which is going to be a very similar audience, you don't show them an ad. And then what you do is you analyze the results and you see if there's any uplift. Where you might do that is if you maybe an agency and you've got a brand on board and they're not convinced that Facebook advertising makes any difference at all. You can say, well, people would have bought the product anyway, even if they hadn't seen the ad. This holdout test is a way to go and prove that there. So it's something else that you've got in your toolbox. And then the third type is a brand survey. So a brand survey is where you run ads and then instead of like seeing the uplift by looking at the number of leads or number of sales, maybe you don't sell online or get leads online, that's not possible. Instead, you can do an uplift survey. This is where Facebook can send out this little quiz in the newsfeed and just say to people, did you remember seeing this advert or not? Generally like a couple of days afterwards there. So this is something that people want to use just to look at the value of their advertising. Not used very much. I do see some in my newsfeed, but it requires a minimum budget of 28,000. And that's a lot of budget just to see if people will call your ad or not. So generally, I would leave that off the table. This is why we're going to be focusing this whole webinar on the first option, which is the A/B testing or split testing there. Now, if you want to get to grips with how to run experiments within Facebook Ads Manager, I encourage you to go to Facebook Blueprint. This is like the free and official courses from Facebook. Just go to facebookblueprint.com. You just log in with your Facebook profile and a couple of courses that you want to take from there. Probably the ones on optimizing campaigns with A/B testing. That's pretty logical. And also just a sort of broad overview of how to conduct experiments to measure your ad effectiveness there. So that's a couple of options that you get for the Ads Manager setup. Also, if you really enjoy this topic, if you're one of those geeks like me that really gets into A/B testing experiments, you can actually take a full Blueprint certification on it. There's about a dozen different Blueprint certifications now. So the one that you'd be looking to take is probably the Certified Marketing Science Professional one. saying, day-to-day advertising, you don't need this, but I just wanted to make you aware of this option. But what we're going to be focusing on for the next part of this training is how to set up and analyze the results within AdEspresso. So, the same principles are going to be applying to Facebook Ads Manager. So if you don't use AdEspresso yourself, don't worry, you're still going to get loads of value out of this next section. But as I said earlier, what we like to do at AdEspresso is not give you kind of some fluffy theory that we think might work. We actually like to put $1,000 behind each experiment and run them, and then we can monitor the results and get some real findings out of those, some real concrete results there. So, like a very simple option for split testing, just to put that into theory, what we've just looked at here, is you might be running two different headlines in AdEspresso. Anyway, whether you get a plus button, you can click on that, you can create a different headline. That's going to create a second ad so that you've got these two variations fighting them out there. Some examples of what you can test, and we're going to go through this in more detail later in the training, but to give you a quick overview now, things they might want to test with the ad creative: headlines, the ad text, images or videos. Like you can see here, I've loaded up 4 different images, a couple of different backgrounds, some different graphics, URLs as well, and we'll be going through some other examples of what you can be testing in the experiments to come. So let's dive into our first experiment. The first one is square image versus landscape. So to give you some context on this, about 18 months ago, Facebook changed the specifications for Facebook ads. Traditionally, going back, since ads first began in about 2010, 2011 in the newsfeed, you had to use landscape images. And what we found with those is they started looking old-fashioned compared to square images that you could use in Instagram. Facebook finally caught up about 18 months ago and said, right, you can use square images for your ads now. So we wanted to test, does a square image outperform a landscape one? So we created an ad. This is to measure cost per lead for a Facebook custom audience ebook download. So we created landscape, exactly the same ad, but with a square image there. So we put $1,000 behind those. And here's the results. We can see what the winner is. The nice thing in AdEspresso is you get your results in a easy to interpret graphical format. We can see square versus landscape. Square was like $5.87 a lead, $7.87 for landscape. Really clear. Going forward, we're going to be using square graphics there. So that's the nice sort of thing that we can see. Very simple to test and very effective there. This is actually moving on now to ad text. This is one of my favorite experiments that we ran. Now, a lot of people ask us, should we be using short or long or medium Facebook ad copy? What's the secret sauce there? And so we actually wanted to put it to the test, and we came up with 7 different ad copies. Our senior blog writer, Anna, she's actually run some of our previous webinars. If you want to learn about ad creative, check those out on our webinars page on our website. But she created a 1-sentence ad copy there. This is again for our free ebook download. Did another 1-sentence version, and then we tested bullet points, just kind of like 6 features and benefits. And then we tried bullet points with emojis, seeing if emojis can make a difference. And then we moved to a single paragraph, basically 2 sentences where you can cover like 1 feature, 1 benefit. And then, more detailed ad copy. So 3 paragraphs here, going to actually give some figures in this there. And then the longest one that we've done is 6 paragraphs there. So that gives us a really good test of different ad text to see what will work best. And here's the results for you. So what we see in this case is 1 paragraph, got a CPA, this is like a cost per lead, of $4.83. And the underperforming one there, much higher, like $11.74. So you can see that real difference just from one element that we've tested, saying this is something that you could set up within a few minutes once you've got that ad text there. And just to summarize, the poorly performing ad text costs 2.4 times more per lead than the best version. Now imagine that you're spending maybe like $1,000 on your ad spend there. That's going to save you, if you can halve your ad costs, that's going to save you $500. If you're spending 10,000 a month, which a lot of my advertisers do, that's like $5,000 in your back pocket there. We're not talking about saving 1 or 2% and spending lots of time over this. This is a very simple test, halving your costs, just like that. That is why I'm going to hammer home the message in this training that we need to be split testing on a really routine business basis. It's going to really revolutionize your business there. But something else that's quite interesting with this experiment is once we were running it, we've got a private Facebook group called Adespresso University. If you're an Adespresso customer, hopefully you're in there. This is basically our private exclusive group for just for our customers. So it's filled with business owners, top-end advertisers. Basically, they should know what they're doing when it comes to ads. So I put a little poll out there saying, here's the 7 ad copies. Which ones do you think is going to work best? And here's the results. We found that 89% of marketers voted for the 3 versions that actually performed the worst. So we're saying to top marketers, make your predictions. They got it completely wrong. And I really like to make this point because, sometimes as advertisers, we think, yeah, I've been advertising on Facebook for years. I know what's going to work. You get quite arrogant, and it can be a disaster for your brand or for your agency because we do not know what's going to work. We can make predictions. We can obviously put some ideas to shortlist for our tests, but at the end of the day, we need to put them out there and we need to let the audience decide. They're going to give us the signals to go and pick the winner there, because as we saw, people just, agency owners, marketers, business owners cannot predict the winners. So not only can A/B testing have your costs, you also need to be putting that out there because even experienced advertisers are going to get it wrong otherwise. Okay, we're going to move on to our next experiment now. Hopefully I'm starting to convince you about the power of split testing. So sometimes we get asked, should you be using Instagram stories as well as Instagram feed for advertising? And of course, what we did is put a simple experiment out here. So we did a video. Again, this is for our Facebook custom audience ebook download. I like using the ebook download, or we'll move on to some experiments for our webinar signups, because you've got something really concrete. You're not just looking at like engagement or cost per 1,000 impressions, your kind of top level metrics. We're looking at the real metrics that move the needle for your business. So we had a square video for Instagram newsfeed. I know this doesn't look so good on desktop. Obviously, it's going to look a lot better when you see it on mobile, but you kind of get the idea there. And then we tested that as an Instagram stories. So this is like I think it was about a 15-second animation there, giving you all the details about the ebook download there. This is what we saw. Instagram feed ads had a 14% lower cost per lead. That's quite significant there. So that tells us that we're right to carry on with Instagram feed ads and maybe not go and give too much priority to stories. However, the Instagram stories did have a 50% lower CPC, our cost per click. So to look at success with the experiments, you really need to decide what your main metrics are. Sometimes we call them KPIs or key performance indicators. Just really, what does success look like for you? If it's getting those leads or your sales, then you could be measuring things in one way, but you might find different metrics if you're looking for like engagement or clicks. So really have a clear idea of what success looks like before you design your experiments. Otherwise, you're not going to get any meaningful stats from them. Another thing that we get asked a lot, all our experiments are designed around common questions that we get asked in our Adespresso University group. And people want to know whether they should be boosting a standard page post or whether they should be running a standalone ad. These are what we call dark posts. They basically don't show up on your page. They just pop up in people's news feeds as ads. So again, onto our tried and true Facebook custom audience ebook download. We created a page post and then boosted that through Adespresso. You could boost it through Ads Manager as well, of course, but we boosted it through Adespresso and then got as close as we can for a dark post. The dark post does have that headline as well, but we tried to get them as close as possible. Boosted both of those. And what we found is the winner in this case was dark post. But again, there's some caveats, a bit like the Instagram experiment. So if we just look at the performance metrics of things like the amount of traffic to the website, your click-through rate, your cost per click, the relevance score and cost per lead, that worked better on the dark post. However, the page post did get more reach for like organically. So you weren't paying for some of that reach there on the page post. It did get a lot more engagement. So that's your likes, comments, and shares. I did get good conversion rate once people click through. So again, it goes back to what your metrics are. Are you looking for that kind of brand awareness, that organic reach and engagement, or do you just want that pure performance metrics like leads and sales there? Also, there might be some other practical considerations outside of the experiment results. For example, dark posts are easier to test. So if you've got 7 ad copies, like we saw in the first experiment, you probably don't want to put them all onto your Facebook page. That's going to look quite spammy there. Instead, you'd want to go and test those as dark posts. So take your experiment results and then think about how to kind of apply those in a practical setting there. Now, up to now, we've been looking at the kind of ad creative and the ad units themselves, but we're now going to move on to audiences. Interest targeting versus lookalikes, which is best? Again, these are the sort of questions that I get asked every day when I'm doing coaching. So what we did is slightly different experiment this time. We looked at webinar registrations. This is a webinar I ran last year. And so we put that ad out there and we tried 2 different audiences with the same ad. One was an interest audience. These 6 interests, these were picked from Facebook Audience Insights. We looked at the affinity scores and saw that people that liked Adespresso's page, these are the kind of digital marketing interests that they liked. So created an audience of 1.9 million people in the US. And then did the same with the lookalike. We created a very powerful lookalike. We were trying to get complete registrations. So we created a lookalike of our 180-day complete registrations. And once we put the age filtering on there, that's 1.9 million, so equal size. So a very good test for kind of comparing apples with apples there. So we ran this, and this is what we found. The winner was lookalikes. We're not halving our cost there, but $2.76 compared to $3.16. That kind of saving is always welcome there. So it just showed us that we're kind of on the right track there using the lookalikes, and very, very simple to create these lookalikes, whereas interest audiences need a lot of research when you go into Facebook Audience Insights there. Now, if you've been running, Facebook ads for any kind of length of time, what you'll probably see is that when you create an ad set, is that there's a little checkbox that Facebook has got saying, do you want to go and expand the interest targeting? This is, of course, if you've chosen the interest, not the lookalike audiences. So if you do use interests, you've got to be thinking, well, do I tick this box? Is this the right thing or not there? So again, we got our little webinar ad here, and then we could measure the cost per webinar registration. And so we tried a range of different interests. I think we saw in the previous experiment, we chose about half a dozen interests, but in this case, we split those out and tried like the interest on its own or expanding the interest, and then just measured what happened with that cost per webinar registration. Is it better to check the box or is it not there? And it depends. So this is where you kind of really need to use your savvy, your kind of intelligence there as a marketer when you run these experiments, and really think about how you're going to design the experiments. So what we saw is that for small audiences, it made sense to go and expand them. And for large audiences, it actually just diluted the audience and gave us worse results. Take-home message really is that about audience size of about 1 million in the US can work really well. So we've got a small audience. Say you've only got like 10,000 people in your audience. That CPM, that cost per 1,000 impressions, can be very high. You burn out the audience fast, then yeah, expand it. That's going to help. But for large audiences, leave it off. So I've read blog posts about audience expansion, and you just get these fluffy kind of theory articles where people go, yeah, always go and tick it, or like, no, never use it. And they're just not really running experiments at all. And if they do, they're certainly not thinking about different audience sizes. So yeah, be quite sophisticated with your experiments, and then you're going to get some really good results there, which are going to really help you cut down your costs and get the most out of your advertising there. So let's switch back again for a minute to the ad creative rather than the audiences. And we're going to look at a test for which type of video works best. So this here is Massimo. Massimo is amazing. He's the CEO and founder of Adespresso. He's based in Milan office. And so we tested a face-to-camera video against a animation. This character here, this is Walter. He's basically the Adespresso mascot. He's like a waiter in a espresso cafe, but he's quite a fun character. And so we did those 2 videos for the Facebook custom audience ebook download, and we measured the results there. So let's have a look at those, and we can see we did 2 versions of the Massimo's video, one with subtitles, one without. They're both significantly higher than the animation. You know, $3.89 compared to $7.61. That's halving your cost there. And what I'd like to point out is that not only is this saving you money, but it can make a big difference. Maybe you've got a benchmark that you need to get leads at $5. Above that, it's just not going to be profitable for your business. So this is the difference between success and failure. It could be that if you're getting like $4 a lead, you're well under your benchmark, and you can just keep pumping money into ads. You can scale to the moon, and that means your business can grow exponentially. Whereas if you're above that profitable cost per lead, that's it. You have to kill your advertising dead. You stop all your ads, and your business could die. It could fail. So this is why split testing is nice. It doesn't just mean extra profit for you. It could be the difference between whether you've got a business or not in a year's time. This is why I really run so many split tests with all my clients. And that's just simple, just 2 different videos. You know, okay, this is a custom animation for us, but a face to camera video, you can record on an iPhone. So you could test like 5 different versions of different videos very, very quickly and really cut down your costs, allow you to scale your business and improve your profits overall. But then one more experiment I've got for you is just look at the call to action buttons, what we call the CTA buttons. Now, again, going back to our tried and tested Walter mascot here with the ebook download. So we created 4 versions of the ads. First one here, no call to action button. So you can click on the graphic, go through to the website and download the book. Everything's fine about the ad, but there's no call to action there. And then we tested the sign up button and download. And final one, learn more. So we tested those 4 different versions, very quick experiment to set up. And we can see here that download, the cost for that is like $5, and like no button, more than double. Even to sign up, very, very subtle change here. Exactly the same ad creative, that's like nearly double the price there. So another key point that I'd like to make here is that you need to be doing split testing, and don't give up if your first ads don't work. So imagine that, you know, we've got this nice ad creative here from our graphic designer. Your copywriter's created really nice ad text and a headline. You put it out there, and your lead cost per lead time, you think, right, that's it, I'm going to give up. I've spent all this money on my ad creation, and that's it. It's not going to work. I'm going to just give up on Facebook ads. It's a waste of time, and find a new job or something like that. Whereas we can see that one little subtle tweak, no change to the ad creative, just that CTA button can halve your costs. So again, you know, don't give up when you first start advertising. Just run some more tests. No new creative, just that little tweak can halve your costs. So this is why you always have to be optimistic as an advertiser, as an agency. If things don't work out on some tests, we move on, we analyze the results, regroup, iterate on the winners, ditch the losers, and keep, you know, wash, rinse, lather, repeat kind of thing. We just keep doing the same process so we get better and better and better with our results. And then once we get that cost down, if we can hit our targets, like I said, we can then scale our ads. It scales your business, and you can then really grow your brand or grow your agency there. So keep testing, can make such a big difference to your brand there. Now, we've run quite a few of these experiments. We run one every month here, so I've only touched on a few here. I don't want to kind of bore you to death with like dozens of experiments, but if you're interested in more there, just go to adespresso.com. Go to, I think it's under Academy, there's our blog page. And yeah, adespresso.com/blog, go to that there. Just search for experiment in the search box, and you'll find out all the experiments that I've been running there. So just one big disclaimer, I should probably put this in like big red flashing lights. But just remember that the take-home message from looking at these experiments is not that you should do a particular thing, not that you shouldn't use Instagram stories or you should always have 1 paragraph ad text. Results are going to vary for every business, you know, whether it's B2B or B2C or different audiences, different countries and so on. So you really need to run your own experiments. So the take-home message here is that split testing, a simple split test, can halve your costs, allow you to scale, not that you need to do any particular thing that I've shown there. So always run your own experiments. Don't rely on the ones that I've been running there. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed looking at some of those experiments. And what we're going to do now is see how we can apply that to your business. What sort of things should you be putting into your test strategy? At the end of this training, I want you to go away and start your own tests. So the first tip I would give you is try significantly different things at first so that you get significantly different results. Can we try 2 different special offers there? Rather than what some people do, and I see this all the time, they fall into a trap of testing very, very similar things. Like they'll just put an exclamation mark at the end of a sentence. A really common thing that people do is they put the logo on the left-hand side of the graphic and test it compared to the right-hand side of the graphic. Who cares? Nobody cares where how you've lined up the logo there. And what you'll find with these minor tests is, yeah, they might save you 1 or 2% of your ad budget, but we want to save you 50%. We want to save you 2/3. We want to radically drive down your costs. Of course, once you've done 10 rounds of split testing, then you can try, different emojis and different bullet points and things. But at first, radical tests is what we're looking for to get radically different results. Some ideas of what you can be testing. Look through Adespresso where you see the plus button, you can see what you can test. Or in Ads Manager, you can look through the different fields there. For ad creative, images, videos, the thumbnail on the video, that's quite an interesting test we ran with Wistia. Same video, but different thumbnails made a huge difference. Headlines, you can't get too fancy with headlines. You've only got about 6 words, but can be important. The ad text, the link description, this is quite minor. Call to action button, we covered that one. Could be testing different landing pages. And then on the audience itself, kind of ad set level, could be looking at the age, gender, countries, different geographic locations, interests, different custom audiences, different placements, like we saw Instagram feed, be stories, bidding, optimization, all sorts of things you can test there. So how do we decide what we're going to test first? We can only do one thing at a time. And what I really recommend is to test the ad creative first. The reason for this is in Adespresso, you're going to get the audience inspector. There's going to give you a breakdown anyway of the age, gender, location, placement, and so on. So even though you might not be testing, say, Instagram versus Instagram stories, Adespresso is going to give you those results. You can also find the same thing in Ads Manager. You can get a column breakdown. Yeah, there's a breakdown tab there. But basically, if you can only test 2 different headlines, quite understandably, if you test 2 different headlines. But if you can test 2 different ages without split testing. Now, you might find that, Facebook skews the budget, and unless you do like, unless you're split testing, then you can't control the budget allocation, but you should get some good indications anyway about the audience. So prioritize the ad creative first. That's going to help. So what bits of the ad creative do we look at there? This is kind of like anatomy of a Facebook ad. The main part is going to be this image or video. And then the primary text, or what we call ad text, is the bit above. And then the headline, confusingly, the headline sits at the bottom, not at the top. This is the link description. The link description, you've only got about 6 words, it gets buried away, and it doesn't show up in all placements. And also just remember, like the headline, that doesn't show up on Instagram. So you need to look at your ad previews for certain placements. And then that call to action button, we covered that in the experiment, but that's the kind of 5 main bits that you've got there for an ad. So this is my suggestion. You might come up with a different strategy, fair enough. But this is what I do when I take on a new client and I want to go and improve their results. Image or video is really important. The reason why that is the case is 94% of Facebook ads are on mobile devices. So we need what we call thumb-stopping content. People are thumbing through their newsfeed at speed. If you ever stand behind somebody, in a queue, on the bus, on the train, you'll see they're probably seeing about 1 Facebook post every 1 to 2 seconds. So bam, we've got to hit them with a very clear, high contrast, highly engaging image or video there. So that's what we need to stop them in the tracks. So a visual medium, that's one I'm going to be testing first, is my graphics. Then if I can hook them in with a good graphic, once I've A/B tested that, I move on to headlines, because that's what they're going to see next. Can't get too fancy, so I'm not going to be doing loads of rounds of testing, but headline, 6 words, got to be straight to the point. That can make a big difference. Then ad text, people are going to read that as a third thing that they're going to look at on the ad. Call to action, as we saw, even just like a little CTA button that gets neglected, that can halve your ad costs. And then link description, really minor, as we saw, gets cut off on a lot of placements. Not many people are viewing ads on desktop anyway, so I hardly ever go and split test that, to be honest there. So once we get our strategy together, map this out, think what I'm going to be testing, and then you can decide then what you need to order. It depends whether you're creating graphics yourself, but maybe you need to send a list to your graphic designer or to your copywriter or whoever handles that to go and get those done so you can start running your experiments. Then naturally you've got to be thinking, right, if I'm going to run this experiment, how much budget and time do I need? How many ads can I run? Now, these are 4 tips I've got from Facebook here. So I just wanted to kind of put these out here for your consideration. So Facebook on their tests, if you run them through Ads Manager, through Business Manager, they recommend a confidence level of 80% above. This is basically statistical confidence that 80% of the time, if you were to run this experiment again, you should get the same results. Also in Ads Manager, if you run a split test, you can run it from 1 day up to 1 month. So it gives you an idea on the length of time that we're looking for. They also recommend a minimum of 100 conversions per experiment. Now, in some cases, this is easy. If you're running lead generation, you're getting leads at $1 each, then it's pretty easy to get 100 conversions. If you're running e-commerce and you're looking for sales and it's $50 a sale, you're going to need a huge budget. So just bear that in mind, is that sometimes you can't be doing too much experimentation. It can be a bit tricky, but I'm going to give you some ways that we can still work with smaller budgets in a second. And also really you should look to complete the learning phase. So this is where Facebook can optimize once it's got 50 conversions per ad set in the first week there. So again, it goes back to why we need that kind of 100 conversions, because you've got 2 experiments, well, two different versions, 2 different ad sets, you're going to need that 100 conversions there. So those are some tips from Facebook. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips of my own as well. I really want to be running a test for at least 4 days to smooth out that random variation. You might think that you might find that some things work better on a certain day than others. We're dealing with real life humans here. So like where I am today, it's the hottest day of the year. So people are down on the beach rather than on Facebook. That could affect results. We've got thunderstorms due tomorrow. That means everybody's going to be at home online in front of their computers, and results could pick up there. So it just smooths out that random day-to-day variation. Also, like, anybody join us from the US, then we've got July 4th celebrations coming up soon. There's going to be lots more ads put out there for like special offers that could affect your individual results there. And if you're running a test for e-commerce, you sometimes get what we call delayed attribution. This is where people don't buy in the first couple of days after clicking on the ad. They wait. They might be waiting for payday. They might wait until they're home from the office when they've got more time at the weekend and so on. So yeah, if you've got a really, really high budget, then you might be running a shorter experiment. But generally, I want 4 days, and really for anything e-commerce related, at least 7 days. I mean, the longer, the better. The more budget, the more time, then the higher the statistical significance, the better you can rely on those results. That gives you an idea there. Also some caveats, I've picked these out from clients that have been running some experiments within Ads Manager. And this is one of the things why I'm not a big fan, to be honest, of the Ads Manager experiments. It's like, this is an e-commerce client. They spent $2,000 and Facebook didn't pick up our winner. I mean, it gave an idea of which one's the best, but it still said it's only 69% confidence. With $2,000 spent there, that's not over their threshold of 80%. So you've got to be careful sometimes running these experiments. They can need quite a lot of budget before you can get good results. So yeah, bear that in mind. And also it just means that don't run too many ads. This is why we want to keep the number of tests pretty small, and we only want to test one element at a time where possible. Another example, this is where they were testing 4 different videos. And we can see with $2,000 spent, there's only a 45% confidence level. That means it's only, well, less than 50-50 chance of being able to replicate the same results with this experiment, really. So yeah, that's not going to be that meaningful. So you can see we need quite high budgets if it's e-commerce. Like I said, if we're running lead gen, something top of the funnel, then we can work with smaller budgets. But sometimes just bear in mind that tests are really useful, but we've got to make sure that we've got the budgets for them there. So of course, you're probably thinking at this stage, well, you tell me split testing is amazing, but I don't always have that budget. So how can we test with lower budgets? And that's why I prefer to use Adespresso rather than Ads Manager. These are the results in Adespresso. You get a nice graph. There's an ads reporting tab from your campaigns in Adespresso, and you get this graphical format. What that means is that you can see trends over time. So you're thinking, how much time do I need to give this experiment? Well, look at the yellow line. It started off as this variant was most expensive, and then there's some inconsistencies, so kind of crossed over on like day 4, and then a clear trend. Once things had optimized and settled down, it was the winner. So I could then start getting confidence now that I've picked a winner. Now, that's easy to see once things start settling down. And like this blue and red one, I'd probably give that another day or two because there has been some crossover. So that's why I really want to be seeing my day-to-day trends in that nice graph there. But if you just look at the results there, the headline results, you can't really tell if you've got enough conversions there to pick a winner because you've got that headline figure. You don't know whether there's day-to-day volatility or you're seeing those clear long-term trends. And this is what you kind of get in Ads Manager. In Ads Manager, you could get a different breakdown. You could look for every day, day 1, day 2, day 3, get different charts up. Not going to be very useful. Much, much better to get those graphical figures in Adespresso. So seeing Adespresso, very, very quick to set up the experiment. You can sometimes use lower budgets. You get nice, clear, actionable results there. So this is why I do all my experiments in Adespresso. Also, if you do something like e-commerce and you're getting small budgets and you don't get too many purchases, think about the other signals they can be looking at. So the way that the funnel works for e-commerce, especially sites like Shopify that use all the proper pixel events that Facebook can detect there. You could be looking at your cost per 1,000 impressions and then your click-through rate, the CTR, your cost per click. Those are your kind of top of the funnel metrics, but then you get view content. This is when somebody views a product. And then people move down the funnel to add to carts when they actually, of course, add the product to their basket there. Initiate checkout, which is the checkout page, and then they go and purchase. So sometimes, if you've got small budgets, like we saw where you get a handful of purchases, I know this one's got more, but you could be looking at each ad and be thinking, okay, I haven't got that many purchases, but let's have a look at initiate checkouts. How much difference is there? Usually you get double the number of initiate checkouts to purchases, so you get some good signals, and then you'll be getting a lot more add to carts. Yeah, 10 times more add to carts than initiate checkouts. So that's not ideal. Ideally we would get loads and loads of purchases, over 100 purchases, but if you don't get that there, look at your other signals that you can be using to then build up there. So I hope that gives you some ideas both on the power of split testing and then what you should prioritize for split testing, how we can implement that. Like I said, if you do it in Ads Manager, go and think about taking those blueprint courses. I think they're the free main courses. They're about 15 minutes in length. It's only the certification that you pay for, which most people don't need. If you do it in Adespresso, then within Adespresso, we've got a university tab, and we've got loads of training videos. My colleague Toy, who's on this call, she's recorded lots of videos. I've done some strategy courses on testing in there as well. But basically, think about testing is going to halve your budgets. That's going to allow you to double your business. It's going to take you a couple of minutes to set these up. So hopefully it gives you some ideas on why it needs to be a part of your ad strategy there. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today. And if you think that Adespresso is going to be useful for your testing strategy there, just like to give you a little thank you by giving you a free 14-day trial and 30% off Adespresso. Just go to adespresso.com/AE-webinar. That's an exclusive offer we have just for people that stick with us on the webinars here. Also, you might be thinking, well, this is really good. I really want to be split testing, but maybe you need some help with it. You want that kind of that hand holding to set up your experiment. We don't just provide software here. We've got experts, including myself, that can help you give you some strategic advice. We have campaign reviews. These are 10-minute tactical videos that can just look at one of your current campaigns and tell you how to improve it. It's very quick, very actionable, very low cost. And we do power hours. So if you want a coaching call, maybe you want to speak to myself or one of my colleagues for an hour about any aspects of your Facebook or Google advertising, and we're more than happy to do that. That can be booked through Adespresso. And we've also got concierge services. This is where we can actually, it's something between running the ads yourself, like self-serve, and having a full agency, is we can actually go and just concentrate on setting up the ads for you. So if you're interested in those, you can take out that free trial of Adespresso, then look in the services tab, or we've got a tour. You can go to adespresso.com/tour, and then just look for the marketing services part there. So hopefully you're going to find that useful. We can give you that one-on-one help that you need there. Like I said, it's not just for Facebook, it's for Google Ads. We've got Bruno and Enrica on our team, who are some of the top top Google experts out there. Now, next webinar, we're going to be changing gears, and I'm going to welcome back my good friend Gianluca. And we kind of like a tag team. We flip between myself doing the Facebook webinars, and Gianluca is going to be doing Google. So that's going to be on 16th of July. If you want to sign up for that, just go to adespresso.com/webinars, and it's free to go and sign up for this training. And Gianluca is going to be covering how to create a full funnel strategy there to boost your Google Ads results. So thank you for joining me, everybody, and we've got some time for questions. So I'm going to welcome Toy to the webinar. Toy, it looks like we've got some questions waiting for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, we have a lot of people who are saying thank you for all the content that you shared with me. I see great webinar, nice insight, clear and effective method. So thank you so much for breaking that down for everyone today.
Awesome.
Awesome. So our first question is actually going to come from email from someone who had reached out before the webinar. A question that we have here is, what's the benefit of using split testing in a single campaign when you can just duplicate the first campaign, make edits, and then publish a new one? So I guess what's the difference between having everything in one versus spread out across multiple campaigns?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And what Facebook can do in Ads Managers, if you set up you use their proper experiment testing, is it will go and have one audience and then like split it in the middle into, it will randomly allocate, part of the audience will see ad A and part of the audience will see ad B. So very, very empirical, very precise. And that's great for getting nice, clean figures because there's no overlap between the audiences. The problem then is like you run the test and it ends and you find a winner and that's it, the test is over. So you then have to create a new campaign, you've lost your optimization, your audience has been cut in half, so you've lost that scale there. So a lot of times I like to run those two campaigns or just kind of like A/B testing within Adespresso, where yeah, it's not quite as clean, you're not doing that kind of like academic test where you're cleanly splitting the audience in half, but it means that you can, if both ad variants are working, you can leave both of them running to reduce long-term ad fatigue. Or maybe you're trying two different audiences, then you can just keep those two different audiences running, get more scale there. And yeah, you can just keep running them after the experiment. You've got all your optimization intact there. So it really depends, how clean you need the data and what your goals are. But I prefer, to be just running two different an A/B test with two different ad variants or two different campaigns, but not always using Facebook's experiment features. We saw sometimes you spend $2,000, it doesn't give you statistical significance, you've lost your optimization afterwards. It can be good, but not in all cases, which is why I prefer the Adespresso approach there.
Awesome. So our next question is, where would we go to be able to get more in-depth training on the subject? And then kind of related, what would be your thoughts on the Facebook paid certifications?
Okay, so yeah, I'm actually Facebook Blueprint certified there. So just to let everybody know, the Facebook Blueprint, like the little modules they've got there, little training courses, they're completely free. You only pay if you need the certification, that little kind of piece of paper at the end. What I will say about a Facebook Blueprint is it's obviously coming direct from Facebook, so it's up to date. It's all going to be highly accurate, but it's very tactical. They're telling you generally how to use a tool, not why to use a tool. So tactics are important, so you can learn the tools, but they don't always give you that strategy. And that's where I prefer looking at different sources. Obviously, that's what we try and do at Adespresso, like in this webinar, is give you more strategy. Like, okay, you know how to test. What should you test first? And that's why I went through test your video or images first, and then headline second, and then ad text third, and then call to action buttons fourth. So you need a mix of those. So definitely look at Blueprint courses, but then think about, look at the AdEspresso blog, the AdEspresso webinars, and we do have that one-to-one coaching if you want to have it a plan tailored, the strategy just to your business there. Also say about Facebook Blueprint, if you do take the certification, it is a paid for course and you have to pay for each retake. The reason for this is it's what they call a proctored exam. It's pretty freaky. Although you can take it at home, it's under full test conditions. So there's somebody watching you on your webcam at all time, and you can't even have a watch on in case you've got a smart watch and somebody's feeding you answers and things. So it's quite an odd, bizarre experience. But what it does mean, of course, is that it's a very well-respected certification because nobody can cheat, or you can't just go and take the test 10 times unless you want to pay for it 10 times. I think it's about $150. So yeah, if you're like an agency and you need to get new clients, great, take it, and that's why I did it. If you just want to learn your skills, just take the modules, get some strategy from other sources, and don't worry about the exam there. I've got a blog post on this. If you go to adespresso.com/blog, just search for Blueprint. I think we got quite a recently updated article that runs through Blueprint in a lot more detail there.
Great. Our next question here is a really interesting one. What are going to be the risks of testing with a low budget?
Well, excuse me, the risk of testing with a low budget is that you don't get any meaningful results. So you can run it and you're thinking, well, is this significant? Is it not? And what I would really say there is that if you've got a small budget, totally understand. Just really concentrate on the big hitting tests, like trying 2 very different images. Or like you saw with our video test, we can try one face to camera versus one animation there. And that gives you very clear differences. And then you can see down the line whether you should work with a graphic designer and create more cartoons, or go and work with a videographer and create more face to camera there. So yeah, go for big significant tests. Don't just mess around with a logo on the left or a logo on the right. Or don't test, if you've got a small budget, don't test like 10 different images at once. You just won't get enough conversions. Cut it down to just like a couple of very simple tests there.
Our next one here is from David. David asks, if I add new ads to an existing ad set, would it be an unfair battle for all of the ads within it? Will the ad set budget spread fairly between the ones that are all on the ad set, or would it give more budget to the ones that have already been running and are better performing?
Oh, so this is a good question, and something to bear in mind here is that if you start adding new ads into a running ad set, you reset the learning phase. So you might actually find that you're knocking everything out of kilter and could affect the results for everything that's already running. So first of all, just don't do that if you're doing a proper experiment. There are times when I add in new ads to a running campaign, but not when I've got an experiment running. You've just got to leave everything alone. It's got to be, under proper lab conditions there. So that's something to think about. Also, you've got to be careful is that when you've got multiple ads in an ad set, is Facebook can get extreme with budget allocation. One ad might get 90% of the budget, and then you just don't get any results from your experiment. So you're probably thinking there, hey, Paul, well, what do we do about this? And if you're running an empirical experiment, then you would have one ad per ad set. So you can then control the budgets. You can say ad set A gets $10, ad set B gets $10 a day, and so on. There is some compromises to that. You then get internal competition. So if you've got 2 ad sets for the same audience, they're going to fight against each other. So it's really tricky. If you put all your ads into one ad set, then you get unevenness in budget. If you put them into separate ad sets, then you get internal competition. So you're in between a rock and a hard place sometimes. So what I normally do is I put several ads together in the same ad set, leave them alone so they can optimize. But if I find that the budgets are just not spending evenly, then maybe I can pause some. Pausing won't upset the learning phase, or maybe then I have to move to put them into different ad sets. So yeah, it is a bit tricky, but just keep an eye on how things are when you've got several ads in the same ad set there.
All right, our next one is from Angel. Should we use CBO or campaign budget optimization during our testing, or should we wait until we have winners?
Okay, this is good. And no, we shouldn't be using CBO because CBO it's going back to that budget allocation. It can be very extreme. We have got a webinar on CBO, by the way. Just go to adespresso.com/webinars or our YouTube channel. But the thing with CBO is it could give one ad set a lot more budget than the others, so you don't get a fair test. Because if one ad set gets 90% of the budget, it will complete learning phase faster and optimize and get more results. So yeah, don't use CBO. And again, this is like some of the previous questions about, we've got to be thinking, what's our long-term objective from experiments? If we want to be running this after the experiment concludes, maybe we need to have CBO. But if we just want to run it as a proper lab experiment, then we won't be using CBO. We need to use that manual control there.
All right. When you find winning ads after you've been running your split test, how do you scale? Or what would be the best method of scaling for that situation?
That's great, and this goes back to, we don't just want to run an experiment for the sake of writing a blog post. We want to actually get some results from this. So what I generally do is once we're really confident that we're seeing a long-term trend and we can pick our clear winners, we can then pause the underperforming ads and we can start scaling. Scale quite slowly, ideally 10% per ad set per day. If we need to push things, then maybe 20% a day. We want to try and avoid, doubling budgets overnight, because that will reset the learning phase, and then our results are going to get poorer. So yeah, scaling. I think we've got a webinar on how to scale your results as well. I think we've got a webinar on most topics now, but yeah, scale 10% per day. 20% if you need to. You get that compound effect. If you're increasing by 10% per day, you actually double budgets within a week. So it's actually quite fast there.
All right. Next one here. Is split testing available for every industry? I teach guitar online and I really want to help my customers in a niche.
Yeah, it's I can't think of anything where you can't run it. It does help if you've got a really clear goal in mind. This is, as you saw in the ads, we were looking for something very concrete, like a cost per lead or cost per webinar registration. These are kind of mid to low funnel objectives there. It can be a bit harder if you're just say you're just putting a video tutorial out there and you're looking at your cost per video view, a little bit harder to infer what's happening there. But if you can look at leads or trials or something like that, then all too good. But yeah, if you're doing guitar lessons, I'd be looking at running people to a landing page where they can get a download there, or maybe you've got a free training guide. Yeah, I'd be doing that. I think you could really cut down your cost there. Maybe, for example, you try a video ad, like 15-30 seconds of somebody playing a guitar, and you test that against an image, like a cover of the ebook that people can get. Just see what people prefer there. Could really cut down your costs. Okay, I think we've got time for about 2 more questions now.
All right. After running a split test for a week and determining the winners, would you pause the underperformers and let them run in that existing ad set, or would you create a brand new ad set with the winners?
Yeah, no, I would leave them running, because you've then built up the optimization, you've completed learning phase. So yeah, I'd prefer not to just cut off tests once I've found a winner. Keep them running then and get some use out of them. That'd be my advantage. Obviously, you could then go and scale them up by rolling them out to different audiences. That could be very useful there, but keep what's working running as long as possible. Okay, I think we've got the final question of today's training.
All right. So this person says they like to run experiments as consumer research. Is there a way to guarantee that a particular user only gets exposed to ad A or ad B?
Yeah, there are kind of a couple of ways to do this. So you could be running the proper use that experiment options in Ads Manager, and that will go and take that audience and it just randomly splits it in half. So you should be, there shouldn't be any bias in the audience, but people will only see either ad A or ad B. It's a very empirical way of running tests. So you can use Ads Manager for that. The other way is think about putting exclusions in place. So for example, if you're trying to get people to download your ebook, then you can build a custom audience of ebook downloads, and then you can be excluding that from your ads. So you can make sure that once people have taken the action that you desire, they're not going to keep seeing the ads there because that's going to affect the performance there. So yeah, that's a really good question. I'm sorry if everybody, if there's any more questions. There, it looks like we got a very good number of responses today, but if there's any follow-up questions, you're welcome to email me at paul@espresso.com, or if you're a customer, jump into our private community at Espresso University on Facebook, and we can discuss further there. So thank you, Tori, for handling the questions today, and thank you everybody for tuning in today.